What's going on, everyone? Homework assignment 22. Today's objective, I can add and subtract unlike fractions. So let's go right to it. When we say unlike fractions, here's what we mean. We mean fractions that do not have the same denominator. For example, 3/7 and 2/3. They both have different denominators. One is 7 and the other is 3. Other vocabulary, the least common denominator. All right, so the least common denominator is the least common multiple of your denominators. All right, and here's what we're going to do in order to find them. So if I was to look for the least common denominator of 5 and 3, well, the first multiple that they have in common is going to be 15. All right, so let's use that in order to perform some operations. Here's the steps we're going to follow. So to add and subtract unlike fractions, we're going to rename fractions with common denominators, then perform the operations and simplify. So the steps that we're going to use is, step 1, we're going to convert to improper fractions if necessary. So if we have a mixed number, we're going to convert it to an improper fraction. Step 2, we're going to identify the least common denominator. 3, we're going to rewrite the fraction so that they have the same denominators. So once we find that least common denominator, we're going to multiply our top and bottom fractions by a value to make those denominators the same. Step 4, we're going to perform the operation. 5, we're going to simplify. Head right to it. So starting off, find the sum, write in simplest form. So we have 3/5 plus 1/3. Okay, so let's say you didn't know what the least common denominator was. What I would do is I would list out some multiples of each of these values. So multiples of 5, we know are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, so on and so forth. Multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. And this is just a strategy for you to use just in case you're not 100% sure of what the least common denominator is. After we write them out, let's identify the first value that they both have in common. And as we stated in an earlier slide, it's 15. So the least common denominator of 5 and 3 is going to be 15. All right, so now I ask myself, how can I turn my denominator of 5 into a 15? How could I turn my denominator of 3 into a 15? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this first fraction by 3. And I'm going to multiply top and bottom of this fraction over here by 5. 5. There we go. All right, and what will that give me? That'll give us 9 15ths plus 5 15ths. Add it together. Now when I add my fractions, I leave my denominators the same, and I add my numerators. 14 15ths, and that is already fully simplified. All right. Let's keep it going. Just to identify, this is a 9. Okay. All right, so we have 9 and 12. Well, I know that the least common denominator of 9 and 12 is 18. It's probably going to be 36, because it's not 27. This is going to be 36. But let's go ahead. Let's turn these into improper fractions, and then we'll talk about the least common denominator. So 9 times 6 is 54. Plus 8 is going to be 62. So that'll give us, I'll write it over here, negative 62 over 9 plus 12 times 7 is 84 plus 5 is 89. 89 over 12. So taking strategies that we talked about the other day. All right, I know the least common denominator is 36, so I'm going to multiply my top and bottom to make them 36. So 9 to get to 36, I'm going to multiply by 4. 12 to get to 36, I'm going to multiply by 3. Multiply by 3. Okay, and again, that's an 89. I want to make sure that my numbers are clear. Okay. All right, so I'm going to rewrite my values. So that would be a 62 times 4. So a negative 248 over 36 plus 89 times 3. 267 over 36. All right, we can add them, keep the denominator the same, and we're going to add together these numerators. So it's a negative 248 plus 267. It's going to give us 19. So that's going to be equal to 19/36, and that is fully simplified. All right, last slide. We got 2 more. So we're finding differences, writing in simplest form. Okay. So this value, I might have to choose a value here, just because it looks like it got messed up. So let's say 5. Let's say 1/5. Why not? All right. So we have our values up here. 3/8 minus 3/4. Well, this is a cool one because the least common denominator of 8 and 4 is 8. So I don't have to touch this at all. Instead, I'm just going to multiply my other fraction, top and bottom, by 2, just to give me a denominator of 8. All right, so that's going to be equal to 3/8 minus 6/8. So 3/8 minus 6/8. Okay, keep my denominator the same. I'm going to do 3 minus 6. So my value would be a negative 3/8, fully simplified. Last one, turn it into an improper fraction first. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 1 is 46. So 46/5. Minus 3 times 7 is 21. Plus 2 is 23. 23/3. We already established the least common denominator is 15 of 5 and 3. So I'm going to multiply this by 3, this by 3, by 5, by 5. 46 times 3 is going to be 138/15 minus 3 times 5 is 115/15. Subtract those numerators, keep the denominator. We end up with 23/15, which I'll turn it into to a mixed number. 15 goes into 23 one time. How much is left over? 8/15. There it is. Check out practice problems. I'll see you all tomorrow.